Primal Chaos.
Hey guys, Primal Chaos here. Welcome to the channel. Now, you guys know I love me some Blackbriar, right? The sad part about being a reactor is that sometimes you'll discover a band like Blackbriar and you just want to dive headlong into their catalog and hear everything they've got. Check out all their videos, watch all the behind the scenes stuff. But the issue when you're a reactor is that, you know, there's still heaps of songs I'd love to get to. I'd love to hear some more really formative Blackbriar and things, you know, figure out their evolution, where they came from. And if I go back and I hear all their catalog, I can't do that on camera because I typically pride myself on my reactions being authentic, right? And if I go back and listen to all their stuff and then try to react to them, it's not what I'm about. So I've had to restrict myself, and, you know, I've listened to a couple of tracks outside of the reactions I've done, but, you know, I'm kind of hoping that pretty soon I can get through some major key reactions from these guys, so then I can just throw it all away and just listen to everything, you know. But when a new song drops, I'm on that. I'm ready to go. So this one, again, it's been about 10 days, I think, since this came out, which is far too long. I just haven't been able to get in the studio. So this is my first chance, first reaction of the day. I'm jumping right into this one. You can sense how excited I am. These guys just have something that just speaks to me, right? It's the, you know, the grandiose nature of the arrangements. It's Zora's voice. It's the competency with which they sort of use musical motifs and just tonal, like harmonic sort of flavors and stuff that to great effect to sound spooky or sound creepy or, you know, whatever. So yeah, I'm super excited to jump into this one. Before I do though, I'll just say this video is brought to you in part today by Enchroma. Enchroma make lenses for colorblind people, glasses and lenses. So if you or anyone you know is colorblind, jump on their website. You can get a free eye test, find out if you have a deficiency, and if so, what kind. And while you're there, you might be able to pick up some cool lenses that'll allow you to see the world a little bit closer to how everyone else does. I use mine every day. I love them. Let's jump right in. Here we go. Blackbriar, My Soul's Demise. I'm pretty excited about this new album.
To feast on your lies, your wickedness and spite, insignificant misdeeds or horrible crimes. I wouldn't think twice and make them all mine. Your death will be my soul's demise. I'll carry your sins, but who will carry mine? Who will carry mine? Who will carry mine?
All right, before we jump into whatever's coming next, again, oh my God, the arrangement is so beautifully lush. First of all, the actual recording, mixing, mastering, everything sounds really nice. It's super clean, it's vibrant, it's bright, and, you know, I think Zora's vocal sits beautifully in the bed of the mix as well. But there's so much going on layer-wise. You know, there's these cool sort of orchestral swells. So hang on, that's... So they've got a piano that's heavily reverbed, right? So it sounds like it's being played from another room. Single string line, bowed strings, backing vocals. Double tracking and harmonization lifts up. Your toms. Or is it kick drum? Kick drum. But see dynamically, this part through here, it starts with like a doo doo, and then everything starts to build underneath. And they're just so gracefully lifting that part up, just from a dynamic level. It just gets louder and louder and underpins, you know. So you start with Zora up here and the backing track down here, and then it just turns into much more complex stuff under here that builds to match her intensity along that sort of trajectory. There's also some low harmonies in there that are so far back. It's really just implied. You can't really hear them, but it's like no 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 no, you know, like down there somewhere. But again, it's way back in the mix. I don't know if it's her singing a lower octave or a lower harmony, or maybe a male voice, but it's certainly in there. I'm sure of it.
Your death will be my soul's demise.
No, no, no.
But who will carry mine?
And then, if you listen real carefully, depending on how good your headphones or speakers are, but I think I heard it mostly in the left ear. There's like bells, like little tinkly sort of sounds. Sometimes when you've got a lot of instruments that are sort of low and mid, it can feel a little bit like, you know, there's no real brightness, especially if they're like long sort of dour string sounds and stuff. And Zora's voice is high, but it still only occupies sort of like the top sort of, if you broke like the frequency range up into 5 parts, she's still only in the 4th band, right? She's probably around 1 to 3 or 4 kilohertz sort of range, like the bulk of her voice, right? So that leaves you with everything all the way up to 20 kilohertz of just nothing. And sometimes there's like sibilance, like you'll hear like that in her voice will be up there, but the core of her melodic timbre is lower than you probably think as far as frequencies go. So you really, what you've got then is a lot of low end, a lot of mids, and a lot of little like slightly more higher sections. But then there's all this space at the top where there's nothing. And so sometimes it can sound like there's not a lot of brightness there and not a lot of detail, right? So they do things like this. You'll hear these little bells come in.
But who will carry mine?
Right there.
Who will carry mine?
You can hear the bells through there when it sort of pulls back. It's just genius. I mean, these are obviously, I don't know. I'm going to have to find out more about Blackbriar's, like the actual foundation of the band. Is it the entire band writing, or is it Zora and maybe one of the other guys does everything, or how does, I don't know how it works. So fill me in the comments if you know, I'd love to know sort of how this is all done. Like, cause the arrangement is beautifully competent, far more competent than what I'd be able to do. And so when I recognize things like that, it just excites me. I love people who inspire me to be better as a creative person, right? But that, like the way that they can hear what's necessary and to be able to really sort of play around with the dynamics in a really masterful and mature way. It isn't as simple. Like, a lot of people think that writing music like this is as simple as rock band song with a keyboard part with some strings. And it's like, yeah, man, it's like, it's orchestral sounding. It's far more complicated than that. It's about knowing what not to put in more than what to put in, right? And when to do it, and how to let a song organically grow and build over the length of the song. That's when the stay in your hand sometimes can be far more important than just packing it full of everything, like the kitchen sink. Let's jump back a little bit, because I want to move into this next sort of part of the song, next act, with a little bit more grace. Here we go.
carry your sins, but who will carry mine? Who will carry mine? Will carry mine over your lifeless chest? I will drink some peace.
So many great reverbs too. Wow, on her voice.
To consume your malice as a symphony. Your death will be my soul's demise. I do anything. I love you more than life. I'll carry your sins, but who will carry mine?
she's so good at working around. I think it's like a harmonic minor kind of tonality to like a melody, but just the way that she sort of navigates and only really uses those exotic sounding intervals in certain places just makes it so much more exotic sounding, because it sounds kind of, she sings in these sort of strident kind of movements throughout the scale that don't sort of, they're sort of clean, and then she'll just be like, you know, she'll put in like this little interval that's in the scale that just sort of makes it matter, that note matter more, if that makes sense. It's beautiful. It's so beautifully constructed, everything about it. Oh, the other thing too is that I'm noticing, I was trying to get my head around what the clip's about, and I think it's to do with an old tradition, soul eating, sin eating. I think it's called sin eating, where you get like the families of the dead would get somebody to come and consume like food or something off the corpse in order to imbibe their sins, and so they can move on to the next plane sin free, right? And so they'd get these people to do it. And I can see that's what Zora's doing here. But I love the way that she's sort of like playing it through as if she, you know, it's like consuming poison. And it's just super dramatic. It's really, really cool. I'm gonna jump back a bit more.
My soul's demise. I do anything. I love you more than life. I'll carry your sins, but who will carry mine? Who will carry mine? Who will carry mine? Who will carry mine?
There you go, see? Oh. Oh, nice play. Wow. See, again, perfect example that the guitar solo is, first of all, it's back in the mix a little bit more than you'd expect, meaning that it's trying not to dominate the song. But it's also, it's super clean and it's melodic and it's got some shreddiness in it, right? He's got some sort of like some, you know, arpeggiated shapes or whatever. But it's not like, it serves the song still. It's not showing off. It's just a beautiful sweeping melodic guitar part that could have been played on any instrument really. But it serves the song. If you're going to do a guitar solo and you know, you don't want it to overtake the entire concept of everything, then that's the ideal way of doing it. Wow, it's massive now, isn't it? Oh, that's interesting. All right, so we're currently sitting in like that sort of like motif, and then they've just gone like how dark does that sound? Wow, just playing with semitones, man. It's all you need to do. Let's go back. I want to hear that again. The other thing too, I was talking about dynamics. Like if you listen to this part of the song, how empty and sort of like spacious it is, right? And then they gradually build it up. You know, it's got a halftime sort of drum feel, and then you got your big chorus. Even then, it's still pretty open. Sometimes it's hard to remember, you know, throughout the course of the song, how much it's grown, like how much the dynamics have changed from, you know, the sort of like very spacious and simplistic openings. And then by the end of it, it's almost like you're just being repetitively punched in the face. It's just a sign of really mature composition and just artistry. Let's jump back in. I just want to hear that come through again. Something really low in there then. Oh, that's so good. Ugh. Oh, the layered vocals. Oh, what was that? Hang on. I'm also missing the visuals too. So, hang on. I had my eyes closed. Hang on, put this down. I got to prepare. I was too busy getting swept away by just the beautiful layered vocals, and there's some Exorcist stuff going on the screen. Let's have a Yep, a little bit of reverse camera there, I think. Yep. This is like an unusual vibrato sort of thing there at the end. Ah, that's cool. It's really different. Good. Oh, cool. Legend has it that was actually not an effect. And then again, we descend back to nothingness through just a simple piano. I don't even know where to start. These guys, you know, Blackbriar are a very well-known band, right? They're very big. But I don't think they're at the household name level that they deserve to be, if that makes sense. I think that they, particularly with this, I mean, this is just on a whole other level. The composition is absolutely spectacular. The production, like the mix. I mean, especially the one thing I couldn't get out of my head is when they got to this bit through here, where there's just so much going on, and it just everything in the mix has its place. It's just beautifully sort of positioned where you can hear every single detail. And you know, sometimes when you're doing a mix, and especially when you got so much symphonic stuff and big drums and guitar parts and layered vocals and reverbs going everywhere, you sort of get to this point where you're like, I just don't think there's enough space in the frequency range to accommodate all of this, you know? And you have to be really picky about what you let through. You've got to chop out a bunch of like low resonance from instruments that don't really need it. And you got to, you know, there's an artistry to finding that balance. It's not as simple as just having all of the music tracks there and just going, okay, just have them roughly leveled out so that you can hear all the instruments. Because if you do that, it's just going to turn to mud really, really quickly. It's going to just be an absolute nightmare. And that's a mixing thing that I've been wrestling with for the last few years. I think I'm finally starting to get my head around it. Mixing is less about adding frequencies and, you know, changing things to sound, you know, better in the mix. It's more about recording everything well and removing problematic frequencies so that then you can balance everything without things walking all over each other. And whoever's mixed this knows, you know, the artistry behind that concept, because it's having all of that stuff going on, and still making it, you know, just breathtakingly clean sounding is just it's an art form in and of itself. The music video was really cool. I mean, can you imagine? You know, I don't know if this was a really practiced or, you know, folklore thing or whatever, but I do know that if that happened and I was sitting in that church and some young lady walked in and then just started, like, you know, having convulsions and starting walking around upside down and things, I'd be out of there. I'd be like, yeah, nah, this isn't for me. I'm going to go watch the Care Bears or something, you know? But man, beautiful music video, perfectly in alignment with the concepts of the song. And, you know, the production as well sort of is beautiful and visceral as well. So it all matches. The caliber of the music video and the caliber of the sound kind of on par. I don't know what else to say. I'm super impressed. You know, these guys have always impressed me, because more so originally the thing that got me, Weakness and Lust, I think might have been the first song I reacted to. The thing that really struck me about them then is they seemed to really have a sense of who they were, what they wanted to do. And that would be, you know, creepy. I think creepy cheapens it. I think the concept of the sensation you experience when you listen to these guys is a multi-layered, complex sensation that there just isn't a word to describe. I don't think. There's melancholy, there's anxiety, there's fear, there is a subtle amount of creepiness. And, you know, they take that sound and then they lean it into lyrical concepts that sort of follow on from that as well. You know, like concepts of, again, using the word witches and stuff like that. It cheapens the concept again, because, you know, you immediately think of cackling witches from like Disney cartoons or Halloween. But when you know the history, or, you know, I mean, I somewhat know the history of, you know, the witch trials and, you know, the chaos of Puritanism and how persecuted people were just for, you know, mob rules kind of brutality and things like that. There's a lot there that's absolutely terrifying from a soul perspective, you know, like the way that it makes you feel. And these guys take all of that nuance and they capture it into their sound and make it seem like they do it effortlessly, you know, like it's just, they breathe and this comes out. And let me tell you, there's a lot of complexity here. There's a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of background, and not so much training, but like, you know, this isn't this kind of level of ability to conceptualize and compose and stuff. It doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it's in your nature. Like you just compose the way you hear things the way you want them to sound and you produce them that way. But these guys really lean into who they are. They don't try to be anyone else. They're not trying to be the next big power metal band or whatever. They're just producing something that probably just really piques their own interest. And that's the best way to do anything, because, you know, you do what you love. And if you truly believe in it and you think you're doing what serves your muse and your passion, there's an audience, they'll find you, right? And so it just so happens this type of music connects with a lot of people, which is really fortunate, you know. But I suspect that even if it didn't, these guys would still be doing the same thing. And, you know, there's just, I got so many complex thoughts bouncing around in my head. But regardless, you know, I'm just a fan. I think that they do an amazing job. And based on the few experiences I've had, you know, terrifyingly few, every single one has impressed me on a different level. But to me, this one is, so far from what I've heard, this is the magnum opus. This is just absolutely breathtaking. And I hope the album sort of follows suit. I'm really curious to see what else comes from this one. Yeah, so make sure when it comes out, you check it out. If there's anyone here who's watching this who's not typically a Blackbriar fan and is watching it because I'm reacting to it, definitely look into more of their stuff. You know, you'll find it's very cinematic. It's bold. It's you know, there's a lot of classical elements to it. Zora's voice is beautifully pristine. So if you're a vocal nerd who likes, you know, the Lara Fabians of the world, or the, you know, the big singers like Demise or whatever, maybe the music is a little creepy for you, but you can't deny that there's a uniqueness to her voice that is something that you can connect with, at least on a surface level, and then maybe start to appreciate what's going on underneath as well. Anyway, that's about all I got to say. This has been amazing. If you feel like I've brightened your day at all, feel free to support the channel just by buying me a coffee. I'll leave a link in the description. But most importantly, like, share, follow, subscribe. If you think that anybody might appreciate this on a Discord or, you know, chat group or whatever, or a friend, feel free to hit them up, copy the link. Anyone who can help get this out, I 100% appreciate it. Thank you so much. Stay primal. I'll catch you in the next one.